British Columbia's residential real estate contract of purchase and sale has just changed again. And the changes made will affect how buyers and sellers navigate their transaction. And if you're not aware and prepared to write your contract correctly, it could cost you big time. The sellers might get caught off guard, incurring unexpected costs and disputes over who is responsible for the federal goods and services tax, commonly referred to as the GST.
Isn't it the greedy sales tax?
But the good news is you found this channel to help you discover when GST applies, how the contract has changed, and how to protect yourself inside of a transaction. And all of this comes to you for the low price of subscribing to the channel. Now I'm going to show you the new contract of purchase and sale shortly and the changes involved in the GST. But first, let's talk about GST, when it applies, who pays it, and how it can affect your purchase price. GST typically applies to the sale of newly constructed homes and, of course, vacant land, no matter how many times it sells. But in some situations, it may also apply to recently renovated homes, homes that were previously used for a business like Airbnb. In some situations, it can apply to a flip of a pre-sale or recently completed condo. And yes, of course, assignments of contract. And GST is not supposed to be payable on resale properties, which could get a little muddy, but more on that near the end of the video. Then that leads us to ask, well, who pays the GST? Well, technically the buyer almost always pays for the GST, but if not outlined clearly, it could cause a whole lot of confusion. For example, even though the buyer is paying technically the GST, it's most often collected by the seller or developer and remitted through them to the Canada Revenue Agency. So if the contract doesn't clearly state the seller is collecting the tax and has the sole responsibility to report those taxes to the government, you can see how they may try to weasel their way out of claiming responsibility for it in the first place, which then could affect the purchase price, because GST is calculated as a percentage of the purchase price of the real estate. So we need to know when writing an offer, is the price on the contract including GST, and the tax could then be rolled into the mortgage and financing? Or is GST expected on top of the purchase price, increasing the overall price and possibly causing the buyer to have to bring that amount to the closing table upon completion? And if you're not prepared, this could add extra expense to you, throw off your budget, cancel your financing, or you could even find yourself in a lawsuit. But never fear, the BC Real Estate Association is here.
You're rhyming now?
Let's hop into the BCREA's latest upgrade to the standard contract of purchase and sale for residential to see how they have tackled the issue in order to help transactions go a little smoother across the province. Now, this is a whopping 105-page document released recently by the BCREA. It contains all sorts of different upgrades for the year. Every single year, the contracts are upgraded and updated to better reflect and make easier and protect buyers, just the whole transaction. And it is the Real Estate Association, the realtors, that put this together. So they're not all bad. Some of them are doing really good things. So this, though, is the contract of purchase and sale residential. Now, that contract actually starts off with 2 pages that have nothing to do with the contract. They're just explanation pages. So what we're looking for when we're scrolling down is anything that has been changed since the last form is highlighted in yellow. Now, again, I'm not going to spend too much time here because all of this that has changed, well, some of it's just additions, but at the same time, this is just an explanation page and it doesn't actually pertain to the actual agreement. It's just an explanation of the agreement, but you will see it if you're writing an offer. Your realtor should be explaining it to you. The first page has not changed except for this section, and it just has to do with the GST. So you would normally write in your purchase price, and you actually write your purchase price in 2 different ways. One numerically, and then you also spell it out phonetically. I hope that's the right word, because you don't want to get anything misconstrued. You want it in numbers, you want it in words, so those 2 things match up and there is no mistaking what the purchase price is. However, before you had to talk about the GST separately, and generally it was excluded from this price line here. But now, because there's been so much confusion with who pays it, when does it apply, when does it not apply, the BCREA is saying enough is enough. Unless the buyer and seller agree Otherwise, in writing, the purchase price includes goods and services tax GST if applicable. Keeping in note that it's up to you and your agent and your accountant and everybody to understand if it is or is not applicable to your sale. And the seller will separately disclose all applicable GST on or before the completion date on the seller's statement of adjustments. So now we know that it is, unless put in writing otherwise, the responsibility of the seller to remit all GST, and the price on the contract includes that amount. And I can't stress enough how important it is that if you're looking at a substantially renovated property or a property that's been used for business, or specifically a flip, that you get advice from your accountant or your real estate lawyer or both and your agent to find out if GST is applicable to your purchase. Because the worst part of all of this is that even after the GST is paid, you may need to pay the GST again. Find out if a second round of GST applies to your newly constructed property on resale. Watch this video right now to learn what most real estate agents don't even know about GST that could be causing them to give terrible advice to their clients.